días y bienvenidos. Good morning and welcome once again to Tiempo. I'm Joe Torres. The Spanish-speaking population in Westchester County on the rise, growing, and there is a concerted effort aimed at educating that population in both English and Spanish. That was the focus of a unique symposium recently at Mercy College. We're going to tell you all about that in just a few minutes. First, however, President Barack Obama has been under pressure to fix the growing immigration crisis on the southwest border of the U.S. Thousands of children from Central America began to enter the country illegally and unaccompanied in the last few years, especially a major influx last summer, if you remember. In response, the Obama administration recently announced the Central American Minors Refugee/Parole Program, known as CAM. The program has its supporters, but it also has its critics who say it is another form of amnesty. We're joined today by Barbara Camacho, immigration attorney and advocate for immigrant rights, and Gayle Kesselman of the New Jersey Citizens for Immigration Control. Welcome to you both. All right, let me summarize it correctly. You tell me if I've got it right. This new program specifically for parents from El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, they are lawfully present here in the United States, and now they want to submit an application to get their children from home here without the arduous, dangerous journey that many of their siblings and cousins and relatives previously done. Do I have it right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. It's a common sense approach.
When did the program go into effect?
It went into effect in December. They've already begun receiving applications. It's a common sense approach to what we consider a humanitarian crisis, children trying to cross the border alone.
Because what was happening, if I remember correctly, the kids were leaving these countries on their own, unaccompanied, through perilous and dangerous conditions, correct?
Yeah. I mean, the stories were pretty tragic. We're talking about teenagers trying to cross through several different countries, risking life and limb to get across, only to be confronted by a desert.
And very quickly, before I get to Gayle, Barbara, what was it or what is it that's happening in their home countries that prompted them to flee?
Complete turmoil. Some of those countries are facing incredible systematic problems with transnational criminal groups that have routinely taken over their neighborhoods. Yeah. They are assaulted, extorted. Women are, regularly abused.
Yes. Yeah. Gayle, your thoughts on this, because I know that your organization has been keeping a close eye on it.
Yes.
When you hear about this plan put into action by the president, what runs through your heart and through your soul?
Well, there's a couple of things, Joe. First of all, I disagree with the whole premise of the discussion, that the way to fix our immigration system is to somehow make it easier for people to come here. The way to fix our immigration system is to first control the border. We have not done that. So all these other little widgets and maneuvers really are not going to get to the heart of the problem. Now, the other point was, to me, a refugee is someone who is being persecuted by their government. An example would be, for example, a religious minority in the theocratic state of Iran, or a pro-democracy activist in China. That would be someone who could apply for refugee status. When I heard Ms. Camacho talking about areas of the country that were taken over by transnational drug gangs, I thought maybe she was talking about some parts of our country. I mean, like Chicago or Detroit. Maybe some of those children would qualify for quote-unquote refugee status. I don't mean to be flippant about it, but I think there is a point that just because there are areas of endemic poverty and crime does not mean that the children there should be necessarily given entree into our country as refugees.
Go ahead, and I'll throw a counterpoint, but go ahead.
I'd like to point out that the programs that are being discussed today, the CAM program, isn't making it easier. It is a program that has several different hurdles for the people who would be eligible. And I'd also like to respond to the idea that we haven't secured the border. Under this president and for the last decade, we have doubled the Border Patrol agents at the border. We've increased funding for DHS to carry out systematic removals. And in fact, as a result of the effort at the border, we were able to drive down the numbers of unaccompanied children crossing to begin with. So the idea that we are not doing everything that we can to control the border doesn't seem to be consistent.
Gayle, I know you're itching to respond, but before you do, isn't it possible, and perhaps this question will go to both of you, that this new legislation will decrease perhaps the number of kids who are coming? Because yes, there are many hurdles, there are many qualifications, which you haven't even discussed yet, as to who would be applicable, how you'd be able to apply, the paperwork that you have to go, so that these children aren't making this journey, this perilous journey, unlawfully. As a result of it, now it would be lawfully.
Well, at the risk of seeming like the hard-hearted person here, I have to disagree when Ms. Camacho says that the border has been secured. I mean, how did these tens of thousands of children get here if the border is secure? And again, we can talk about this or that technicality of this program or that program, but it doesn't get to the heart of the issue, which is that we desperately need to secure our border and we desperately need to reform our immigration laws.
I actually agree with Gayle.
Yeah.
We do need to have comprehensive immigration policy reform, and this is an example of taking a simple beginner step. Certainly this is a stopgap measure. This isn't the whole of what we should be doing with our immigration policy for certain. Congress should act.
Before we get to a break, let's get into, we've only got about 30 seconds and we'll keep talking about it, some of the qualifications that you have to meet in order to successfully lobby and apply to have your child get from El Salvador to the United States. Walk me through 2 or 3 of them.
So first, your parent has to be here lawfully. That means they have to be a green card holder, a DACA grantee. They have to be a TPS holder. No, it doesn't apply to citizens. So there's a discrete category of people who can even begin to apply for the affidavit of relationship, which is the document that they would need to initiate. This is a very narrowly tailored program. It is the maximum number of people who can apply is going to be 4,000. I mean, that's the cap on the program. And to Gayle's earlier point about refugee and the definition of what a refugee is, these children are still going to have to make a credible claim of being a refugee before they're even allowed to come in.
Yes.
So that should
sit tight.
Address some of those concerns.
We'll talk to Gayle. I'll get you an opportunity to respond to that when we come back. More on the CAM program, the Central American Minors Refugee Parole Program. Still ahead on Tiempo. How about this? It was the first ever symposium on what's called dynamic bilingualism held in Westchester County. What is dynamic bilingualism? Well, stay tuned and find out when Tiempo comes right back. Welcome back to Tiempo. We are discussing the Central American Minors Refugee Parole Program. It's called CAM. It's designed to help address the border children crisis. We're joined this morning by Barbara Camacho, an immigration attorney and advocate for immigrant rights, and Gayle Kesselman from the New Jersey Citizens for Immigration Control. Gayle, I wanted to go back to you because it sounds to me like this executive action, if you will, would take it from people, young children, entering the country illegally and give them an opportunity to enter the country lawfully.
Well, again, this is the same story, which is the proponents of quote-unquote comprehensive immigration reform look at people that have come here illegally, and the idea is to somehow make them legal. That's the idea of reform. My idea of reform is to seal the border so we have control over the people that come here, and then look at the people that are here and see, you know, what sort of status we can give them after we have the border controlled. And also reform of our immigration laws, because even legal immigration is out of control. We take in 1 million people. We have no control over people coming here. Most of the people that come here illegally come here on visitors visas, tourist visas, student visas. Nobody tracks their entrance and exit. And so we have millions of people that are here illegally.
Barbara, but if I understand it correctly, the difference is what she's describing. Many times people have entered the country and then the process begins when they're here. In this case, the process begins before they've left the place, their home country. So to me, it would seem that it spins it around, that the process begins before you've even crossed the border. In order to cross the border, we've got to knock down certain barriers to make sure it's okay for you to arrive.
Yeah, it's an attempt to discourage the dangerous trek that these children are undertaking in order to come into the United States. And I would say that advocates for immigrants have a different view of what comprehensive immigration reform is.
Even though you both agree that it's definitely needed. Yes.
We certainly don't think that it's exclusively about allowing individuals to come out of the shadows. That's a very big part of it, because if we have a population that we don't know about, then they're not going to feel part of our society They won't report crimes when they happen. I mean, we want to bring people into the fold. We're a country of immigrants, and we want to stay true to that. But it also requires us to look at the border and promote border safety. So I think that Gayle misunderstands what proponents of...
Gayle, other than securing the border, what option, therefore, what solution would you offer when it comes to specifically addressing this narrow issue of unaccompanied children crossing the border seeking safety from their home country?
Well, again, I would question their status as refugees. I mean, just because someone comes from an area of poverty and crime does not necessarily mean, so in terms of the specific statute, I'm not sure that would turn them into a refugee.
Okay, but I'm looking for a solution. What if you had it your way?
A solution to what? Poverty and crime?
No, a solution to the fact whether they're refugees or not, unaccompanied children crossing the border. If you had it your way, other than securing the border, what would you like to see done?
Well, I think securing the border would solve the problem of children crossing the border illegally. So I'm not sure, but as far as solving the larger problem of poverty and crime in some countries...
I think that's probably, and you would agree that's probably out of the area of our discussion. And we've got enough issues here in our country to try and solve on our own. To try and take care of poverty in other countries might be a bit too challenging.
But I think some of the things that I would propose in terms of immigration reform would be to model our system on, for example, that of Canada, where you have a point system which looks at things like health, education, vocational skills. People are given points. I actually know someone personally who tried to immigrate to Canada and was turned down because he was too old. And he was
I think that's a great system, and that was the system that we proposed in S744. That was before Congress, and they chose not to act.
I want to be careful that we don't lump these children into the broader issue of immigration reform, because as we've discussed on Tiempo many times, we can do 4 shows in a row simply on immigration reform. This seems to be a specific issue that centers around the influx of large numbers of young children, and that influx has gone down, has it not? Significantly.
Due in no small part to the progress that we've had securing the border. I would say that this CAMP program also allows individuals who do not meet the refugee definition to be considered for parole, humanitarian parole. And in order to be granted parole, you have to establish that you have urgent family concerns or medical concerns or related concerns that would be in the best interest for the child to come into the United States. So even if the person doesn't meet the refugee definition, and many of these children will, by virtue of being victims of domestic violence and other categories. A lot of these kids...
Go ahead, Gayle. We've got about 30 seconds.
What's in the best interest of our country? Why do we necessarily feel that someone who has serious medical problems should be allowed into our country? We have our own people that are victims of domestic abuse. We have our own people that have serious medical problems. We have our own people that deal with poverty and crime. Why are we making a special effort to bring more of these, and I feel badly for them, unfortunate individuals into our country? I don't get it. And as far as stopping the influx of these children, it should have been done right at the time. I mean, why would tens of thousands of people allow...
Ladies, we're out of time. I think it's a topic that we can discuss here probably for the next couple of hours. So we've shed a little bit of light on it. It's a new program, a new initiative that's been launched by the president, like it or not. So we'll see what effect, if any, it has on the influx of young unaccompanied children coming in from these specific countries. Thank you both very, very much. Coming up next on Tiempo, Mercy College in Westchester County recently held the first ever symposium of dynamic bilingualism to help teach the growing Spanish-speaking community en español e inglés. Did I say it right? We're looking at this unique teaching approach when Tiempo returns.